Well, today is World Teachers' Day. Now, we know teachers play a crucial role in our communities, our lives, our children's lives. Well, for more, Basic Education Minister Angie Motshekga joining me via Skype from Mamelodi Teacher Centre. Good morning, ma'am, I should say, Minister. Very good morning. Thanks so much for your time.
No, good morning, and thank you very much for having me.
So what is your message to teachers on this very special day for them?
Is that we continue to honor them as the backbone of our education system, but as people who basically raise our children whilst we're at work, we are elsewhere, so they inculcate the values that are necessary to make them better and good people. So the message is that we honor them, we respect them, and we really wish them well.
And it's been
all the time.
It's been a particularly trying year for teachers in recent history. I don't know when they've had a more difficult year, teachers and pupils, but teachers having to keep it all together, adjust their ways of teaching and just how they have to function. And many of them as well being put at risk because of their own health with COVID-19 and the pandemic, Minister. What have we learnt over the past couple of months when it comes to our teachers and their resilience?
It continues to be very difficult for them because even under the new norm, it's not easy to even sustain. It looks quiet on the surface, but just for them to keep the education system going, keep the safety, it's just a big challenge. It's even more stressful than it normally is because they have to break their classes in halves. It's even more complicated and more difficult to be a teacher now. But the schools I've visited, they are calm, they are reassuring to learners, and they are so, I think, heartwarming just to see them carrying our children and the system on their shoulders the way they're doing even currently.
So just as pupils were asked to go back to school, as we kind of try to get things back to normal, teachers' unions towards the end of last month or towards the end of August we're very concerned, still talking about things like water shortages, also talking about overcrowding in classrooms. Minister, where are we in navigating those situations? And we know sanitation being a big problem for schools even before COVID-19, and also, you know, putting them at a bit of risk as well with the lack of facilities in some of our schools.
No, indeed, teacher unions were understandably very anxious. It was at the time where the peak was high and we were witnessing lots of deaths, and it was a very difficult time. And as teacher unions, as the leaders of teachers, were rightfully concerned. And with their assistance, we worked very hard to normalize a very abnormal situation. As I say, even now, to just keep the system, and it's in the hands of the teachers going, it's also not an easy one. The fact that we have half of them coming per day eases a little the pressure of very limited resources. Provinces are trying very hard to continue to put systems in place. I mean, the schools I visited in Gauteng last week, the province is working very hard to deal with your sanitations, to deal with the shortcomings that we've always had. So it really put us under pressure, but it has also spurred us as government to move with speed to resolve some of our old outstanding problems around infrastructure.
And what's top of that list for you, Minister, in terms of the challenges that remain, and how soon do you think those can be resolved?
As soon as we possibly can, because it's also driven or determined by the resources, but also by the capacity out there to be able to deliver speedily. We also don't want to deal with old problems with half-measured solutions, and that's what I always say to them, to say whatever you put in place must help us to deal permanently with our old problems. As I say, for instance, when I visited schools in Gauteng, the MEC has given money to schools to make sure that they themselves do the necessary infrastructure improvements or development, something which we have not done before. Instead of going school by school, the MEC is able to deal with 500 schools at a time. So the pace is fast enough, as I say, determined by available resources, but also the capacity to do it right. So the priority for me is the safety for learners, to make sure that we don't compromise their safety and the teachers themselves. It's the infrastructure, which is our old albatross, our old problem. But also, for me, the priority is that with the limited time, because now we have less contact with the learners, we still manage to give as much as possible to learning and teaching. For me, one of the biggest concerns is just our ability with the limited time, contact time, to still be able to give our children enough learning and teaching. And that's, for me, one of the priorities that are concerning us as we operate under these very difficult conditions.
Yeah. And in light of that, Minister, I mean, what would you say to teachers as when they look back on 2020, how would you want them to remember the year? Many say, 2020 is a write-off because of what's happened. It's the worst year of our lives in recent history. But for everything they've had to put up with and everything they've had to put in extra, what would be your word to teachers as to how they should regard this year and this teaching year?
At the end of the year with us, and we're preparing our matriculants, I just met a group of them, very motivated. And I hope that at the end of the year, we're going to say, with all the difficulties, with all the threats to our health, our well-being, we did it. We did it not for anything, but to protect our children's future, to keep them engaged, to keep them with hope. And we did what we had committed ourselves to do, to protect our children and their education. And I hope that by the end of the year, we will be able to be proud as a sector to say it was not easy. It took so much from us. It took so much from our teachers, but we did it.
And in terms of the rest of us, the parents, the rest of the other citizens, how can we support our teachers?
I think now it's even more that we need parents. Because, as I say, we're not able to have them daily. We want, and which is what is happening. Teachers are saying COVID-19 has also had some positive outcomes. We want them to pay more attention, to supervise the homeworks we give them, to make sure that work is completed, to sign. We just want them to pay more attention and support their children more, because the more they support them, they are supporting the teachers and making the teachers work. I mean, some schools I went, teachers were showing me that clearly this child, because some come only 1 week, the next week they're not coming. So they have a week's assignments and exercises to do. And you can see that the book had not been opened. No one paid attention. But in the majority of books, parents are paying attention. So all we ask from them is to support learners, because by supporting learners, they're supporting teachers.
And Minister, as you know, as we know government or the ANC looking at unemployment, looking at plans, if anybody wants to become a teacher for the young who maybe didn't consider teaching as a profession, and where we might find some gaps where we can employ our young South Africans, just what are the qualities that make a good teacher? You having been a teacher yourself for many years, what are the qualities? What are the opportunities out there in the teaching profession?
I think you must love the job first. You must enjoy being with children. And as you correctly say, I always tell people that even before I became a teacher, I used to play teacher, even when we were playing as children. I always used to play teacher. So you really must have a feel for it. It's not a very easy profession. It can be tiring when you have to deal with young people who are young and restless. So you must have patience with them. You must really love them. But you must also love knowledge. You must enjoy what you're doing. And I think that's what will help. And for some reason, we're quite fortunate that there are lots of young South Africans now who are choosing teaching as a profession. Our schools are becoming younger, vibrant, and these are your university graduates. Real bright young kids are coming to the profession. And for that, we're very grateful, and we hope the trend continues, that young people see teaching as a very viable and attractive profession.
Right. Thank you very much, Minister Angie Motshekga there. And again, happy World Teachers' Day to all who toil day in and day out for this generation and future generations.